I would say 10, 15 years ago, society would tell men to man up or suck it up. There's more important things to worry about, like paying the bills, making sure the family are fed, have a house over their heads. But I feel like now it's more acceptable. It's been advocated for after studying psychology, like to understand how the mind works. It's actually really important that we talk about what's troubling us. Being a black man and dealing with mental health, I do feel there's a difference culturally. Because I'm Nigerian, and from what I've seen with older men in my family, for example, my dad, he's one of my biggest role models, and I've never really heard him talk about how he was feeling or what he was dealing with. So being brought up in that environment, I thought that's just not something we talk about.
Society does kind of encourage men to deal with their emotions in a healthy way, more so than it did probably like a few decades ago. But I still feel like underneath that there's an element of expectation that men kind of suck it up and just deal with it. A lot of people kind of say, well, the traditional role of a man is to be the breadwinner, go out, have a good job, make loads of money, support a family. But it's getting increasingly hard to do that, especially when you look at such things like property prices going up, not many people getting good jobs. Our generation, when they went to university, they were told, go to university, you'll graduate, you'll get a great job. But what we're seeing now is a lot of people coming out of university really struggling for employment and actually doing jobs that they could have done at 16 or 18.
I've lived in a number of Asian countries. I live in Philippines, Thailand and Vietnam, and Singapore as well before coming here. And I have witnessed a strong machismo within the culture. And moving here in the UK, I don't see that there's a diminished level of machismo. And I think that's one of the barriers for men that they need to surmount if they're dealing with their mental health issues.
Yes, I do believe there is a lot of social pressures around how men should behave. And I think those messages appear very much when you're younger. I think straight away from sort of being born, really, in terms of, boys wear blue and boys don't cry, and as you get older and into a sort of late teenagerhood, you keep your stuff inside. You don't, you bottle things up.
I think there are stereotypes in sort of gender identities, like kids, when they fall over, the mummy will be the one that's like, oh, I'll look after you, whereas the dad is the one that you wait until your father gets home, and that kind of perpetuates this myth that men are the fixers and women are the carers, which kind of means that men don't get the emotional vocabulary, emotional intelligence, and emotional help that they might need.
I generally feel like when I go to the gym, I forget any problems or worries I have for that hour and a half, and my mind and my focus is fully on running on that treadmill or lifting that weight that I couldn't do 2 weeks ago. I tend to feel the same way about that when I'm playing football as well. For me, sport is a massive part of my life, even if it's just watching, but more so playing is just a way to escape real life. I really do enjoy the fact that there is a camaraderie, you're with people, like-minded people.
I have quite a good routine. I'll get home, I'll have a shower, just freshen up. I think I feel a lot better after that. The drive on the way home from work as well is time to kind of clear my head. If I'm dealing with a lot, then I just say, I just need an hour or two to relax and just calm down, and it sort of subsides for the day.
I keep a journal, so I process my emotions, I process my sentiments through writing.
Often I try to take a step back and just kind of look at the bigger picture. I'm not a big runner, but I've always been consistent for the last 30 years, doing about 30 minutes, 40 minutes every day. But the consistency about running, it really does help with my breathing, because I notice that when I'm swimming, I notice that when I'm running for a bus or anything, it really does bring a sort of stillness, and it helps me to be how I want to be with my life.
I find listening to podcasts, I find reading, I find playing on the PlayStation, going for regular little walks, borrow my doggy. We chill out with this little dog once a week, which is really, really good fun. Taking a little bit of time out, and also the hardest one is not drinking. I find that really, really difficult. In the short term, that really helps. Longer term, that kind of makes it a little bit worse.
If I know somebody's struggling, or if I'm struggling myself, I guess my coping strategies is to understand, try and understand the situation, why it's having that impact. Try and work on ways to divide the situation up into smaller chunks so you can deal with them. You can deal with it better. What I've noticed is that every time I go to my family and my friends and tell them I'm struggling with something, they all say, "I knew it." And as a man, you need to be able to understand that, okay, how do I take the pressure off? And one of the best ways I know how to take the pressure off is by talking to people and bouncing ideas off people.
If I could give advice to anyone, it would be to talk about it. Like I said, it's that first step that's probably the hardest one, but once you actually have the courage to kind of take it, that's the first step on the way to actually dealing with the problem.
It may sound as a cliche, but I really see mental health as something as common as physical issues, physical health.
Initially, I do reach out to people just to double check and ask, is this right? Am I doing this right? You know, because in my world, I work freelance. Sometimes you're alone. You're very much alone doing what you do, and it's nice to check in with other people just to share what you're doing, your approach, your methodology, and some of the challenges that you might have.
It would almost be irresponsible for you not to find a way to deal with it. And I feel like the best way to deal with mental health is by getting advice, seeking help. It's not an easy subject to talk about, and you are leaving yourself quite vulnerable. But nowadays, it's becoming more acceptable, and without that first step, you will never climb the mountain. Nobody should have to suffer in silence because they don't feel it's macho.
It's very easy just to kind of bottle things and just to kind of let things build up and get worse and to try and ignore the problem, especially when society kind of says that men have to be tough and deal with things. But it does take a bit of courage to actually look at the situation and say, I'm not okay here, and actually I need to go talk to someone.
I would say that those men who talk about their mental health issues, they're very brave, they're very inspirational, because personally I wouldn't do that. It's something that we should see more often. It's something that we should see more in public, up to the point that it becomes really common, that it doesn't become, out of the ordinary anymore.
When people come to you with a problem, in my personal life, that's kind of rare. So I value that. The men that I've known or seen out in the community don't want to be seen as weak. If they're a leader in some way in their own community, they don't often, there's not a sign of weakness, there's not a sign of vulnerability amongst them. And even that, for me, is a stereotype, because they're just a cardboard cutout in one sense, because even though they're leading, you're not leading if people can't really get to know who you really are.
I do respect people sort of more when they go and get help, purely because they're taking control, they're taking ownership of what would be a problem. And something really annoys me if you know that there's a problem and you are not doing anything about it, that really frustrates me. And you would never do that with anything else. You'd never go like, oh, that door hinge, that keeps on squeaking. Oh God, that's really annoying. You're like, well, it's your house, put some oil on it. And if someone just kept on complaining and it got worse, then I'd be like, you're really annoying me. This is your house, deal with it.
I would never judge someone if they came up to me and told me that they had a problem. Nobody is living a life with no problems or no stress. So I would be happy to talk to people. I'm someone who loves listening, and I think it does take a lot of strength to talk to people about your problems. So I would commend anyone who had the courage to tell people what was going on in their lives. A problem shared is a problem halved, and it doesn't have to be a 2-hour chat. It literally just has to be a 5-minute chat.
I personally would encourage my friends to talk to me. It wouldn't change how I view them. I know they've been there for me when I've needed them. I would always encourage them to come to me if they need to.
It's not really a sign of weakness to acknowledge that you have mental health issues. It's not really a weakness to acknowledge that you do need help.
I don't tend to think about the masculinity. So I've got a couple of examples. My brother, who's a year older than me, who's got some mental health issues. So he's quite heavily in demand. At least 3 or 4 times a week, he'll ring me up and tell me, "Oh, I've got a problem with this, problem with that." But I try to get him to slow down, get him to see the bigger picture. Sometimes he gets it, and sometimes he doesn't. But I would never sort of look at him and think, "Oh, you're a man, and this is how you," because I believe because of his mental health problem, this is the way that he is.
I think if anyone came to me with any of their problems, I would think of them differently, because I would be like, I respect you for coming to me and treating me with the respect that we can talk about that. And genuinely, I think 1 time in 100 you might get people that say, unhelpful things. But I actually think a lot of the time, a problem shared actually brings you closer together than actually draws you apart. I think it's kind of weird to see people in a negative life for what's going on in their brain, because I know 1 in 4 people has mental illness, but 4 in 4 people has mental health. So everyone has mental health. So it is mental to respect someone less for a problem with something that you also have.
The NHS did a brilliant job in helping my family member. If anything, I wish there were more mental health workers, more social workers working in mental health. They really got to the grips of what was causing it, and I'm very glad for the work they did. It has made a dramatic change.
When I first started secondary school in year 7, I had mandatory counselling because my parents were going through a separation, so the school advised that it was something I should do. I don't necessarily think it was something that I needed, but I think it familiarised me at an early age with the fact that some people do need help.
I sought out a therapist in my 20s for around 2 years. The experience was weekly. We had 50-minute sessions. They made me feel quite open. It was a man. He didn't judge me. He made me feel really relaxed. And I felt that I was in good hands just to be able to have someone to talk to. I found that experience really rewarding and just learnt so much about myself and my past that I was trying to sort of ignore, really. And that was being really useful.
So I had 2.5 years of therapy at the Maudsley Hospital in London for my anorexia. I've been to the GP about depression, and I've been on antidepressants for the past couple of years. And genuinely something that I find really useful, I still call I still call the Samaritans. I just find that really, really useful. And again, that doesn't have to be used when everything is absolutely falling apart. It's kind of using it so that it doesn't get to that point. So, if an engine light came on your car, you wouldn't go, "Oh, I'll just leave that until it blows up." You would probably do something about it. And I think it's the same way for your own mental engine. Just look after it. So yeah, I've sought help, and to be honest, I've had nothing but brilliant experiences. And like, for example, talking therapies really, really work for me. CBT, not so much, because I don't like worksheets. I don't like doing homework. Whereas talking therapies really, really suited me because I don't have a conscious narrative voice. So I find talking is really, really helpful for me. But you know what? Some people, like my girlfriend, she don't like talking about things like that. She likes to get it ordered in her own mind. So there's loads of different types of therapies. And the beautiful thing is, I think you see it as a kind of project of like learning what works for you, because it shouldn't be working against your brain. It should be kind of try and get in tune with what does work for that organ.